Welcome to the Whiskey Vault. It's my birthday? It's my birthday. At least that's what I think I'm doing today. I'm trying to remember, am I doing this for my birthday or not? It's my birthday. And I just got back from a trip where it's about this bottle. And I have debated talking about this bottle, but I'm gonna do it because I want to. Keep in mind, and it's my birthday, and I can be a little indulgent on my birthday, right? Okay. Keep in mind, this is all that's left of this because I shared a whole bunch of it with a bunch of other people, which is what this is for, by the way. I am working with this whiskey company, like actively. I just came from an event working with them. So I have personal interest in the story of this whiskey. But you can't buy this whiskey. No one can buy this whiskey. It can only be given to you. So I don't have a financial interest in the sales of this whiskey because you can't buy this whiskey. So I have an emotional investment in this whiskey, and that's why I'm disclosing all of that first. So here's the story of this whiskey, and it's a very interesting story. A year and a half ago, I got contacted. One of our partners on campus, his name is Ryan Shute. He reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm a part of this group that created Bourbon for Chris Voss." And I don't know if you know who Chris Voss is. I think his book was in here at one point, but now it's on the other side on the library. He's a FBI hostage negotiator for more than a decade that now does consulting for companies on negotiating and things like that. Wrote a book called Never Split the Difference. That book altered my life at a moment when I desperately needed it. And so I have two copies of it. One that's nice, and one that's dog-eared and like highlighted and pin marks, and because there was a negotiation that was the most important negotiation of my entire life, and I was drowning. And this book showed up, and it saved me emotionally. And so I've always been a huge fan of Chris Voss, and I was like, well, you're creating. Oh no, is this going to be one of those like celebrity vanity cash grabs where, like, you know, a famous person puts their sources, some MGP, slaps a fancy label on it and be like, I made this. But my heart sunk a little because in my industry, that's always like oh man. But he said they're looking for somebody to work with them in their events that they're doing for their members of this group. And I was like, look, my rule is always say yes till you have to say no. I shot a whole video on it. Always say yes till you have to say no. So I was like, fine, I respect Chris Voss. There's got to be more to the story. And so he put me in touch with Guy, who's the guy who runs all of the company, this group called the Shareholder Society. And I was talking to Guy, and I was like, hey, explain to me what this is. And the story was, you know, when you're doing negotiating and doing business deals and partnerships and selling companies, and there's millions to hundreds of millions of dollars on the table, and you want to give somebody a gift or make a connection, what do you give to a whiskey drinker who is $20 million company and probably owns every Pappy Van Winkle ever made, if they care about that kind of thing? The answer is you give them a whiskey money can't buy. So a guy named Nick Nanton and Chris Voss got together and said, what if we created a whiskey that was just a really amazing whiskey, but you couldn't buy it. You had to be a member of this group. And as a member of the group, we would give you a certain amount of these bottles every quarter, and you are required to give it away. That's the goal of this whiskey, give it away for relationship and connections and as gifts, but just to give it away. Not hoard it, not collect it, not store it. And I thought, well, that's really interesting. Like, join a group, get whiskey you can't buy, and then you're encouraged to use whiskey for connection and relationship, which we've always said, that's the point of whiskey, connection and relationship. I thought, okay, well, that's cool, but like, what's the whiskey? And tell me about the whiskey. And then, and Guy said, oh, I can't really, but I can put you in touch with the third guy who helped us start this company, who's the whiskey guy. His name is Roy Milner. And immediately I went, okay, I'm in. Because I don't know Roy personally, but I know of Roy. And we have a huge Venn diagram overlap of people in our circles who all know each other. Like we are 1 degree separated in like 100 connections. Roy Milner is, where was it, Blackberry Farms. He's done a whole bunch of whiskey business. He created Art of the Alchemy blend, which is in the vault, and I love it. And I've always seen his name next to cool. And I was like, well, even if all I get to do is get on the phone and hang out with Roy Milner on the phone, that's worth it. So I call Roy, and I'm like, Roy, what's going on here? And he said, here's the story. These guys came to me. They were pointed to me by Dan, the head of projects at Bardstown, because they were said they should get whiskey from Bardstown because Bardstown's great, which I agree, Bardstown is great. And Dan said, I need you to put you in touch with Roy Milner. He has access to some really weirdly rare barrels. And Roy said, it turns out Roy's friend, Jim Rutledge, as in the master distiller of Four Roses until he retired, and Hall of Famer, Jim retired from Four Roses, and then he wanted to do a pet project where he created this whiskey with all the gloves off and just exactly the bourbon he wanted to create, with no agenda and no bean counters going, you can't ferment for that long, that's expensive. And so he worked with Bardstown and created these like 200 barrels of like the quintessential bourbon that he wanted to create. And then they just sort of sat in the warehouse because he wasn't sure what he was going to do with them. And then he worked with Roy. Roy used a few of them for projects like Art of the Alchemy, I think. And then these guys came along, Chris Voss and Nick Nanton, and said, hey, Roy, we're looking for a really good, high-quality bourbon that's impossible to get. And so it's not just like our version of a sourced thing, but like there's no way you can taste this outside of this group. Do you know of anything? And Roy Milner goes, why, yes, I do. And so they bought the remaining 200 barrels, or the rest of the barrels. Now, these were all distilled in December 2019, immediately before COVID. So this whiskey's all 5 years and change now. And crawling in on 6, the barrels that are still sitting at Bardstown. And they started releasing them last year and into the beginning of this year. I joined them for their first event in March or April. And they sent me a bottle because I was supposed to do some tasting notes and review stuff on it. And I picked it up and went, son of a, that's not the most bourbony bourbon I've ever had in my entire life. Like, it's not an outlier, like breaking new territory, charting new ground. I think I mixed those up. Anyway, it's just the most perfect bourbon, down the middle of home plate bourbon you've ever had. Like in Plato's Cave, if you know your philosophy, there's a chair on which all other chairs are modeled. In that cave is probably a bottle of this bourbon. It's so quintessentially perfectly bourbon, and it's really good. This one is the second release they did called Bottle is Bond. All of them are named after business and negotiating and things like that. And it is fruity, and I think because these longer fermentations, and it's apple, and it's cinnamon, and it's molasses and crumble and pastry, and it's oak tannin, it's dark cherries, it's everything that you've ever wanted from a bourbon. It's so much so that I keep thinking maybe I'm being psychosomatic about this, and so I keep pouring it for people going like, tell me what your experience. And everyone I've ever poured it for in the nerdy whiskey industry is like, holy crap, that's amazing. That's like that's a bourbon. That's great. I poured it for Emma, and she's a malt drinker. She likes bourbon, but not as much as she likes malt. And she sipped it for a while. She's like, wow, you're right. This is really great bourbon. This is just like, I don't know how to put words to it, but it's just like really dead center, beautiful bourbon. It's like, yeah. And then she finished off that bottle of ours at the house over the next month and a half. I never got a chance to drink it again. So just every time I turned around, she was pouring that bourbon again. So I think that's a really cool story, and I wanted to share it with you. Nose, palate is long, soft, tannin, slightly cherried, creme brulee, bursts into orange citrus. It's just a flawless bourbon as far as I can put my finger on it. And on my birthday, I wanted to talk about, and the day before Thanksgiving, I just wanted to talk about that because it's something I'm grateful for. And I can't believe as I get older, I get the chance to be involved in some of these really cool things. There's a level of suspension of disbelief that I've realized something on this birthday that is sort of like, it's a good time to take a little mental pause. The longer you're in the whiskey industry, the more easy it is to be cynical. And I think this is true in really any industry. The longer you're inside behind the curtain helping pull the levers with the wizard, the easier it is to just lead with cynicism, to lead with like, it's probably bullshit. Because, sometimes you're right. But I think that that's a protection mechanism because disappointment hurts, right? And there's only so much you can handle of it before you're just like, I don't want to keep putting myself out there like that. So if I just lead with cynicism, I'll always be safe. But the goal in life isn't to be safe. And I want to, in the next year of my life, redirect away from default cynicism in any way that I can find it in my life and sort of regrid. This is a weird, chaotic time in the world, and we are here for it. And I think the great battle we have in front of us as human beings is to not let our whole life be absorbed into cynicism and lack of hope. So let's try to find some joy. And that's why I'm grateful that they included me in this group and that I get to drink this whiskey with this group specifically. Because every time I've hung out with this group, there's just a lot of joy in that room. And there's a lot of hope. And there's a lot of people trying to do things that make the world better and not just make money. And the fact that they've found this amazing whiskey and all they're doing with it is giving it away. I mean, there should be more of us like that in the world. So here's to this crew and Chris Voss, Nick Nanton, and Guy and Roy for including me in this adventure. Ryan for introducing me to the group. Here's to you guys for being along with this journey. Happy birthday to me. I like more than half of you. No, I'm just kidding. Cheers to you. I'm really glad you're here. Hey, it's my birthday. Like and subscribe for my birthday.